What's up, everybody? It's Hardy Construction. You can find us at hardyconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardyconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hardy Construction with your host, Comp, and
stained glass anus hole.
And today's... Oh, boy. Today's film is...
The Wailing, 2016 South Korean movie.
The Wailing, a 2016 film directed by... Hong-jin, written by Hong-jin, starring Jun Kunimura, Jung Ming Hwang, Woo-hee. That's my Irish accent. That was an Irish accent, so nobody could think I was being racist. This film is about a stranger who arrives in a little village, and soon after a mysterious sickness starts spreading, a policeman is drawn into the incident and is forced to solve the mystery in order to save his daughter. I don't know where the woman came from when I read policeman, so maybe I'm very forward-thinking as a man.
She was the one that was throwing the rocks.
Even women can be Ghostbusters. Alright, so this film, I picked this film because we haven't done an Asian film in a while, and I heard good things about it, especially from, I forget what the website is called.
Apparently it got 100% freshness rating.
Ooh.
On, what the fuck, Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, and we can trust Rotten Tomatoes. They're right all the time. So
they tend to be accurate for the most part.
Yeah, I guess they compile the correct amount of people saying if a movie's good or not. I guess if it's over 70%, it's a fresh rating.
If they're saying it's 100% though, or even like a high number like that, you figure it's kind of a good movie, and it was.
Well, I mean, it's all depending on people's like what they think about a film.
No. They are the word of God.
It's almost like, what was that film? I want to get into. Well, yeah, Ghostbusters. Like, people were saying the thing is with Ghostbusters, the new one, you can't for some reason what went behind that. Now it became like some sort of gender war thing. And
I still haven't seen it, but I actually want to see it. But I'm gonna wait until
it became this whole gender thing on Rotten Tomatoes, where some people now for some reason, if you were like legitimate reviewers, like I consider us just guys that talk about movies, not reviewers, because that's like it's just annoying. But like with that, they will automatically give it a positive just because it stands for something, like it's a feminist movie. And I watched it, and that movie has nothing to do with feminism. I saw like the first 10 minutes, and I was like, this, I don't know how this has anything to do.
Did you like it?
I didn't think it was funny at all. Like the parts that I saw, but then again, that could be a completely different humor for somebody else. It didn't feel like the humor from the original Ghostbusters. But the thing is, I don't hold the original Ghostbusters up to this high pedestal that a lot of people tend to do. No, I think for what they did with it, it's fucking awesome. Like, especially the feeling of the movie is great. You know what I mean? And there's just something really, really dark and weird about that movie that I like, that hits with me in a different way that the new movie does. Like, to me, I picture it as a comedy, obviously, but I picture it more than that. I picture it as a really cool, like, supernatural sort of weird, quirky movie.
It's like an adventure,
right? And this one, it kind of starts off like it's almost like it obviously has the original Ghostbusters has SNL people in it, and this one is more like, this is literally comparing original SNL like comedy to the new SNL comedy, where everything has to be kind of, how Bill, what the hell is his name? Bill, the guy, Peter Venkman.
I don't watch.
From Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, Bill Murray. Come on, man.
Right, Bill Murray. How he has that sarcastic, dry kind of humor. That's what the SNL I think is trying to emulate, where it's all this kind of sarcastic hipster kind of humor, and that's what the new movie is. And I don't really like that kind of like. It really depends on the kind of sarcasm that's being done. Anyway, what are we talking about? So anyway, that's
we gotta talk about the Wailing.
That's what Ghostbusters. Anyway, go see it. Make your own fucking feeling about that movie. Anyway, so this director Hong-jin, he did a film called The Chaser, which I liked a lot. It's a Korean. Listen, South Korean films are so fucking good. It's disgusting how good they are. Like, there was.
I don't know if I've seen many.
But your racism. But there are plenty of South Korean films that are just like on par with like. Well, listen, there hasn't been really good a lot of, and I don't want to be snobby about it, but I haven't seen really good like North American films, Hollywood films lately that I'm like, wow, man, it made me feel like, wow, you know what I mean? Like film, like even though like stuff like genre movies, like even though I love Dredd, Like, that movie was awesome, but it's not like, say what people think about The Godfather. Me, myself, I've never really
No,
seen
well,
The Godfather, but,
this movie's full of like symbolism and
right,
meaning and all kind of
this
shit.
film feels like a complete film. Do you know what I mean? Where everything, like, there's nuances and the way it's shot and anyway. But this director, he did a film called The Chaser a while back, and speaking of South Korean film, that's up there with films like I Saw the Devil, which is a great fucking serial killer. Basically a police officer continues to torture a serial killer, and it just goes all to shit.
Imagine every mention of any South Korean movie that has anything with the devil, it's all played by this one Japanese stranger guy.
Yeah, right. So South Korean films tend to have these really dour, very depressing films. Like, the endings are always fucking depressing. I mean, shit, you saw this one. This is a depressing ending,
Yeah,
too.
this was actually very
Just let me just tell you, every good Korean film is depressing as shit. It's very depressing. And
Is that like a cultural thing? Are they like sad over
I don't know, because I think there's a thing where I guess people used to say the American films in the 70s used to be really depressing because the endings weren't like happy. Because like in the 80s, pretty much for the most part in the 80s, well, at least the more popular films always had a happy ending, you know what I mean, where everything was fine by the end of it. But in the 70s, I believe that they were more realistic and nihilistic. And Korean cinema just kind of keeps that. I'm sure there's Korean comedy films and stuff like that, but they're really like dramatic films always end bad. Like they just always. I don't know.
And that fucking the shaman is the one that really kind of creates all the problems by trying to help. Like he's wrong he's wrong the second time and basically gets the whole family killed.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So just as a short list right now, I'm gonna suggest everybody to watch these South Korean films. Old Boy, which was remade by Spike Lee, and apparently it was shit. I couldn't tell. I would assume it is because it's just bad. And if you've seen Daredevil, they basically lifted a scene from Daredevil when he's fighting the guys in that one take in the hallway. That's what happens in Old Boy. You should definitely see Old Boy. Old Boy, these are 3 films directed by the same guy, Park Chan-wook. He did Old Boy, he did Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which I loved. And it's probably the most depressed I've ever been at the end of a film, because I was just depressed by the end of it. It's just like it's a movie that's great, but by the end of it, you're like, fuck, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then
Dancer in the Dark felt that way to me.
Right, and then also Sympathy for Lady Vengeance or something like that, which I don't think was as good as the first 2 films. The Chaser, which was okay, which is directed by this guy, which is basically a pimp who's trying to find a guy who's been killing his prostitutes. Which is it's a good like cops are, And my favorite Korean movie of all time is Memories of Murder, which is one of the best, my favorite police procedural film of all time. Anyway, those are good South Korean films. I'm just giving a little, short list of South Korean films that you guys should watch. And Wailing is definitely up there for me now after watching it.
This is like, one of the best movies we've seen in like.
Yeah, it's. I think so. Like the fact, I think for how well it's put together. I mean, you know what I mean? Like how it's just.
Yeah, it's just there's so much going on. It's like funny. It's depressing. It's awesome.
It's a mystery that starts growing, and then when you find the answers, it doesn't give you every answer, but you're still like, wow, what did I just witness? And it may be one of those kind of films where it divides an audience where they want complete answers, or maybe they just don't want answers. Like I for the most part like having answers when I watch films.
I was a little confused, but like it makes sense. I read like a summary of it, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So I don't know.
So let's get into what this film is about. What is this film about, Danny?
It is about a small village. There's this policeman who's like kind of the main guy.
Yeah, Jong-gu.
Okay, and basically there are people getting sick and going crazy and like trying to kill each other and shit. And
there's these mysterious murders that are ramping up in this small village that these cops just tend to. I'm trying to.
Are the cops really like that there? Like they don't have guns? They're like.
I don't know, because you got to think it's a cultural thing. So you got to I don't know what area of like America, maybe in the down south, maybe where they have like only 2 cops.
If this was in Baltimore or something, everybody in the village would be dead at the end. Like
they'd have riot cops and shit.
Yeah.
With army grade weapons. But and this one, there's like there's enough cops. It seems like there's a good amount of cops, but since this is more of a rural area, they have to go out of their way to get there. It seems like when they show the cop kind of visiting, but the cops themselves live in the village. The main guy, Jong, lives there with his wife and his daughter and her mother, the mother's mother, the grandmother, the maternal grandmother. And they live in a small town. And he has I like that sweet relationship he has with his daughter in the film. Which
it made it more depressing, though.
Yeah, it does. Because they play it well, because you see his warm affection with his daughter. And it's a nice setup, because you kind of just think it's some sort of small character thing to show between these two characters. And when it turns to shit, you're like, oh, where's that little girl that I loved before? Now look how she's changed. You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jong is kind of surprised. Him and his partner, I can't think of his partner's name, but his partner is this other guy who's sort of, on the level, nice guy. This first mystery that happens is that they find a dead person in one of these kind of shacks. These aren't like big houses. They're sort of like these. I don't know much.
Everything's kind of like woods and small shacks.
Yeah, it's like a rural town, and they find this dead body, and sitting there also. I mean, it's really unsettling the way that these people look, because there's these people that look like they've been poisoned by these mushrooms, by these infected mushrooms that we find hanging around the village. And like this guy is like dark skinned and his face looks mutated and creepy. He's just sitting there.
The fucking makeup was awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, he's just sitting there, and that's what I like. It's subtle sort of horror. I mean, it is like the ending of the film is not very subtle, but it's the way it's done is really sort of classy. They could have gone like really bad with it, with how some horror movies nowadays do it. But like the people that are infected or possessed maybe looked really creepy, because they just look like they're like negative or poisoned people, and it's not really.
Yeah, their eyes are like all red. Everything's like all red, basically.
Because you just think that these people are having bad drug trips and like killing people. Sort of like, remember that guy who ate the homeless man's face? That.
He did bath salts, right?
Yeah, bath salts kind of thing. It's sort of that, like in this. That's what they think. How it's starting out.
Bath salts is my favorite drug now.
Eventually, what happens is that there's more bodies just piling up in this little town, and Jong is getting creeped out, because there's a part when they go in there, him and his partner are late at night, and they're talking about this ghost story that one of the local villagers said that he saw like a demon man in the woods, and it's a story that carries over, because it's like Jong has these nightmares throughout the film, and he actually sees this demon man in his dreams. And
but they weren't nightmares, right?
Right, I don't think so. I think they were visions. I think they were like life telling him something is coming up. You know what I mean? And you don't know what's reality and what's dream when he's having these dreams. And it's not one of those films where you don't know what's happening. Like it's pretty clear cut what's going on in the film, except for maybe the ending. And it leads to there's this big. I love that part where they're inside the police station and they get scared by that naked woman that's in the rain outside the door.
Yeah, and all the people in the movie are like really funny and good.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about this movie is I was laughing throughout at the right points, I think. I don't know if the guy aimed it for it to be a comedy, but the guy Jong-gu is this like, he's sort of an everyman. He's like, I bet you if they remade this in America, they would probably put fucking Kevin, who's that asshole from The King of Queens?
Kevin Smith?
No.
Not that guy. I know the guy you're talking about.
So it's just like a guy. He comes off as realistic, like realistically spooked. You know what I mean? Not like. Yeah. And it's funny because he's like this sort of like pot-bellied guy, like a chubby guy, and he's just getting scared. And honestly, that's probably how we'd all react in this situation. Well, I know I would if I saw fucking mutated people.
If I saw a guy with a rake in his head, pulling the rake out and chasing me, I would be screaming like a little girl. So, I mean,
Jung-gu gets, like, attacked here and there at these crime scenes by these, crazy people that are mutated by this drug or whatever they're affected by. Maybe it's possession. And to me, it was always the fucking funniest scenes, because he's just like a regular guy with facing these almost impossible odds of trying to understand what the fuck's going on. But eventually we hear that there's a mysterious stranger that moved into the forest. And he's a Japanese guy played by played by Jun Kunimura, who you and I have seen in a couple of Takashi Miike films.
I knew him, and then I looked him up. He's in Takashi Miike films, but he's also in Kill Bill. He's
Was he that guy Was he the guy that got his head chopped off by?
Yeah, in the cartoon, he gets his head.
No. I think he was no. That's a cartoon. I think he was the guy that got his head actually chopped off. No, maybe it wasn't him. The guy who was. No,
he's not the guy that Lucy Liu chops his head off. I think he's the one.
Was he the voiceover or something?
No, you might be right. Actually, you might be right.
Either way,
I remember the one that calls her American, Japanese, whatever, like hybrid bitch or something. Whatever he says.
Okay, I remember he was in Ichi the Killer. He was that guy who was like one of the big toughs, and then he goes up to Gigi. Remember when Gigi is the old man who takes his clothes off and he has a muscle body and he twists his head the other way? It's very later on in the film. Listen, everybody go watch Ichi the Killer. It's a masterpiece. It's the Dark Knight, but with like rape and violence. It's like insane, that movie. It's super gory.
I remember liking Gozu better, but it is good.
Yeah, it's great. It's basically a comic book film if people had balls to actually have people die and have violence in it. But in this film, he plays a mysterious stranger that's moved in from Japan, and I gotta like honestly think maybe it's not intentional, but I definitely got to believe that there's some sort of racism towards Japanese people with this movie. Like, I think.
Yeah. Well, at first I thought they were like making statements about like xenophobia and sexism.
That might be the case. That might be the case. But when it turns out to actually be the case, you're like, oh.
Yeah. Then I was like, okay, well then it's true. You shouldn't trust other types of people. Because
like apparently from stuff that I read. Okay, so let's just get into the spoiler territory. At the end, throughout the whole film, there's this whole sort of we're going to discuss the film. If you've seen the film, like you might as well just, if you haven't seen the film, watch the film and then listen to us. Stop the episode and listen to us now.
Stop
after you've watched it.
Now.
Okay, so in the film we find out that there's a shaman that's hired by the grandmother. She's telling Jong-gu pays for him, and he's supposed to do this ritual, which everybody's been saying, it's the Japanese guy. He's evil. He's the one that's been putting this curse. Obviously, we've seen in his house, he's had photographs of all the people who've been killed or affected by this curse. He had a photo of the guy who turned into a zombie and attacked all those cops. And he had, a dog, and the John killed the dog with was it a hammer or a rake or something like that? He killed the dog with something. Was it a shovel?
Oh, he killed him with like a pick.
Okay, right. So the Japanese guy obviously seems very strange, but while watching it, I was like, oh, this is a red herring. He's not evil. Like, it's just I was like, as soon as I watched him, I was like, he's a good guy. Attacking.
Well, they
whatever
did a red herring of the real thing. Like, he is evil.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is that the Japanese guy is evil. He is basically the devil incarnate, and he's like, to me, I was watching it late at night, and I was getting kind of the willies watching it, because that scene was very like, it was like very creepy.
Yeah, when I started taking the pictures, I was like, oh, this is creepy.
Yeah, it felt that part to me felt very Western, like when he was taking photos of the guy, because that felt like how like some sort of weird M. Night Shyamalan movie would end. When you hear like that weird dramatic music before it ends. But anyway, Here's stuff that I read from the IMDb page. This is what people write. This is a thread from the page itself of the Wailing. It's massive spoilers. Who was the woman? The woman is this character in the film that is very odd. I thought she might have had some sort of mental deficiencies or something, or just like weird. Because there's a part where she's throwing stones at the cops, and you think, oh, she's just some sort of quirky. She's the Zooey Deschanel of Japan. But we end up finding out that there's something more to her, like whether she's evil or whether she's good. And of course, like every film that's dramatic, there's a sequence where a shaman is telling the cop, "Don't interfere when I'm trying to get this hex off of your daughter," and he does. Like,
of course he does.
You knew it's coming. I mean, I knew it was coming. I was like, I know he's gonna fuck this up. He's gonna fuck it up. And I was like, don't do it. Don't do it, John. You son of a bitch. You dumb bastard. Don't do it.
You should. And of course, if he would have just shut up and waited, it would have been done already. There would be
he defies someone again. But then again, in his shoes, what can you do if you see your daughter, God forbid, looking like she's going to die? You'll try to stop it.
I would let it go on, because she's already going to turn into like a zombie thing.
Yeah, and then the second time when he's with the woman, she's telling him don't go back to the house. Although I think that would have happened anyway. I think the daughter probably would have killed the family because, or maybe him walking over there is what caused it. I'm not sure.
I don't think she would have.
Yeah, so the daughter kills the family and then she's stuck. It's a very sad sort of end. Well, it is a sad ending. And here's what I'm reading off of the IMDb page. Okay, so you'll tell me what you think. I'll tell you what this guy wrote, and kind of makes sense. Okay, according to the director, spoiler below. This is from Matana87. He wrote this on June 4th. Spoiler: the woman in white represents God when she is. This is what he says according to the director. The woman in white represents God when she asked Jung-gu to wait until the rooster crowed 3 times. It was symbolizing the difficulty of humans placing their faith in God with no real proof, and with outside forces causing temptation. There is no way to know what would happen if he stayed until the rooster crowed 3 times, just as humans never really know the true outcome of the road we don't take. Also, the scene with her tossing the rocks was a play on the let he who has not sinned cast the first stone. So, I mean, what are you... apparently this is what he says, the director says, so I don't know, with no link to it, I don't know.
I mean, it all makes sense, just like, I don't know if I would have thought of, like, I could have thought of, the proof with the rooster, like, I kind of got that vibe, but I don't think I would have thought of the casting the first stone thing with the rocks.
So here goes another point. The Japanese man is an evil shaman, spirit / tengu. I think that's a word for demon in Japanese. However, his overall struggle in the movie is supposed to represent Jesus. Depending on one's faiths and belief, he can be seen as good or evil, and he is seen by the villagers as an outsider, stranger, and looked at with suspicion and fear. I don't know. I mean, since he physically turns into a demon at the end, I don't think he's like Jesus, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know what that person's talking
about. But if this is director saying that he wrote it, whatever. And this is also here. The Korean shaman is also evil. Obviously, by the end of the film, we see him also taking photos of the people's body, which I thought was a weird, sort of strange twist, because in the middle of the film, he's working on this death hex on the old man. So,
why is he evil?
Here we go. The Korean shaman is also evil and is paired with the Japanese man. 4 major clues indicate this. See, this is where I think this guy's starting to theorize. Clue 1, he is seen driving on the left side of the road. This is done in Japan, not Korea. So, I don't know, I guess they drive on the right side of the road like Americans in Korea. Which also shows maybe some Japanese hatred in this film, I'm not sure. Clue 2, when he is changing his clothes, his underwear is the Japanese style. Koreans do not wear this pretty much ever. You know that little white underwear when he was getting undressed?
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is typically that's how I was confused, because I remember seeing that from Japanese people, and then he put it on. I was like, oh, Koreans do this too? Clue 3, the fact that he was willing to do a death hex at all. Korean shamans never do this. It is considered extremely untouchable. However, Japanese shamans do hex each other. Clue 4, during the death hex scene, the Korean shaman hacks away at a jungsun. And then, I don't know if this guy's Korean, and then drives nails through it. These are totem poles meant to protect the village from demons. So the shaman was actually causing damage to the daughter, expecting the father to intervene. This was a trap. Also, the photographs are meant to illustrate the capturing of souls.
Well, you know what? I mean, that could make sense then with the idea that the girl throwing the rocks is like God or something, because she makes him puke blood and all this shit. So maybe that guy was lying. Well, maybe that guy realized, oh shit, this girl's onto me. So he called and like set up the dad, Jong.
But if it's happening away from him, why is he essentially setting himself to be hexed by the guy? I guess he knew he would. Be
maybe
saved?
He's in on it.
The Japanese guy.
Maybe he's in on it.
Yeah, but he's like dying in the woods. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody watching him die in the woods, so he could have just told the guy to do a fake hex, or maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Well, maybe he was dying in the woods from something the woman was doing.
That could. Yeah, you're right. That could be.
I don't know. But this is all kind of like, I don't know if I would have thought of these things if I didn't hear somebody else theorizing about it. I don't know.
What was it in Wiki that you said that makes sense to you?
No, there was just like, I was having trouble keeping track of like names of people and stuff. I was getting a little confused, but it like breaks it down really nice, like the summary of it.
Yeah, I think that What was your like? Not let's push away what I just read. What were your thoughts of what this ending meant? Like, well,
it was just depressing as fuck. It was basically this guy did. My thought on it was this guy didn't have faith that like things would work out and tried to intervene.
Yeah, because that's basically what the Christian minister, I mean the Catholic. I forget. Koreans have a heavy like Catholic presence over there. Like it's because I guess missionaries went to Korea way back when and converted a lot of people. But there's a lot of Catholicism. They even have a Korean Jesus over there, which is pretty cool. Because you know how we in here in America, Jesus is depicted as a white guy. In Korea, he's depicted as a Korean guy.
I kind of took it as he didn't have faith. He went there, basically fucked everything up, and now his whole family died, and he's gonna die, and it's really depressing.
So you think it's just
what I got out of it.
So you think it's just a guy who's tempting fate and not leaving into the hands of the heavens and screwing up his own life?
He's just trying to control. He's not like listening to reason from this woman.
Right, and the woman in white had the clothes of dead people on her, so. You know, there's also some symbolism in that because there's a part where he's looking at her and she's wearing the jacket of one of the guys that went insane or something that died. So, I mean, it could be that is a whole thing where the Japanese guy was evil. By the end of the film, you obviously see the Japanese guy as a demon.
But I can't blame the main guy because I would not trust anybody either.
Right.
At that point, you know.
I would have tried to get the fuck out of town, honestly, because it seems like it's so funny that. All these other people are saying, don't do this, and the Catholic, his basically saying, don't do this was the most weakest of all, because he was like, just let things play out as they are, and you're like, what? You know, my kid is, sick, like, what the fuck can I do? And it was it was really sad to see, like, when his daughter, when she gets pissed at him, when he's questioning her if the old man had talked to her.
Oh yeah, that was so upsetting. Actually.
And she gave him this look, and I got a flashback from this girl I dated because she had the same exact face. She had the same sort of like look on her face, and I was like, ugh, I got scared. But yeah, the film, like I say, Korean films can really depress the shit out of people, especially that relationship. And I felt bad for Jong because he's just like a frustrated guy who just wants to take care of his family. You know what I mean? He just wants to have his wife and his
selfish bastard.
Yeah, I know, right? And everything else just bad happens to everybody in this little town. And for what? Is it for this devil just to have fun? You know what I mean? He seems like he was bored and he just wanted to
I don't know.
just to have a great weekend in Korea. Because obviously there's a part where the woman is having a chase scene with the Japanese guy. Or not, she's not chasing him. The guys are chasing him to kill him. And he ends up falling over that cliff, whether he was pushed or, he jumps on purpose.
But he seemed like scared. I guess the devil wouldn't be scared, right?
You never know, because you never know. It's also that whole religious thing. Is like God put Jesus in them. This is according to Catholic faith.
Body,
yeah,
blah,
and
blah,
he
blah.
was obviously he wasn't infallible. So he was is it fallible? That means you can get hurt, right? So. Maybe he's that type of demon where he's in a human's body. He got his ass kicked. I mean, he was shivering in that cave by the end, and that priest came in. I don't know why the priest didn't kick his ass. The priest was so frightened.
What's the priest going to do anyways? The fucking devil. You can't.
I thought he was going to just try to stab him to death, and that's because you're led to this thing. Like there's this dread where moments where you feel that I felt that the Japanese guy wasn't evil. And these mob party comes to go get him. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, please don't kill him, please don't kill him. And then it happens a couple times in the film, and you're like, oh, you know the inevitable is coming.
I just felt like, this is like a preview of what we're going to be having in America very soon.
Just the outsider, the unknown guy. Whether they're evil or not, and what mob mentality does when you're facing a bigger, sort of threat than you can possibly understand, which I think the movie does really well. Although by the end, when the guy actually turns into a demon and he's like, spooking the shit out of the priest. I mean, it's very like I was watching, going, ooh. I was watching at night, like I said before, like, ooh, this is. I don't feel good watching this scene. I just felt creeped out watching it. I literally did. I was like, ooh. I was looking around in my room at night.
That's good
but
though. That's what horror's supposed to do.
yeah, it was a genuinely unsettling scene. So I mean, I liked it. I mean, I really liked this film. I think it was like one of the best I've ever seen. It's one of those films where, like, it doesn't start out as a horror film. Because when
It's a comedy. Actually.
Yeah, it does. Because when I first like a kind of a supernatural spooky comedy, not a supernatural but spooky comedy, and then it turns into like supernatural horror.
You know, I want to rewatch it now with the ideas of this person is God and this is the devil and all the stuff that guy was saying about this guy's a Japanese shaman and he's lying or whatever, you know.
Because when I first heard about the film, I was like, okay. I was like, once I saw that it was like really good, that's what the people were saying, and then they were like, oh, it's a horror film. I was like, fuck yeah. I was like, I want to see a good like horror film, like, and we could talk about a good horror movie. And I think it really like, and they said, oh, it has an insane ending, and I was like, usually like movies won't be insane. When I saw the zombie scene, I was like, ooh, that's pretty crazy. But then at the end, when the guy's taking pictures of him and everything has gone to shit, I was like, this is genuinely an insane sort of ending. You know, it's not insane where it's like Takashi Miike, where like there's a movie called Dead or Alive that he does, where I won't even say what the ending is here, but that might be the greatest ending of a film ever made in cinema, just because it's in berserk. It's insane.
Right.
But it's insane in its own level where you can't grasp what's reality and you want to get off this ride. You know, it's one of those sort of endings. And it's scary, and it's like legitimately super spooky. But I loved it a lot.
Did the director write it too?
Yeah, he did. And apparently he did another movie called The Yellow Sea, which is apparently an excellent film. So I gotta check this guy's movies out. Once you get a hold of a good drama South Korean director, you gotta check out all their movies. They're basically all depressing, but they're really good. The dramas, not the like comedies, because I'm sure they do goofy comedies just as bad as the Americans do. But this film is really worth it. Really worth watching. So I was gonna give it an 8, but I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 because it's a film. You know what I mean? It's a film. It's not like bullshit where you watch it for an hour and a half and then like, okay, that's it, and then you kind of just go. It makes you think about it. Well, it makes me think about the movie, and I had feelings throughout the film. You know, I was laughing. I was feeling terrible for characters.
Feelings. Get in touch with your feelings.
I'm a real boy. So I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Passionately banging your wife in the car and then finding out your daughter has seen the whole thing a couple of times, so you buy her many presents to shut her up.
That scene was so funny.
That was funny.
The way he's like, yelling at her as it's happening.
Yeah, that was good.
I'm gonna give this. I agree with you. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Puking up massive amounts of blood, but somehow being okay to drive afterwards.
Yeah, that was awesome because like he was being affected. I was actually worried for him when I thought he was a good guy. When all that hail was happening to his car, all that like weird mud.
Those were like insects.
Yeah, I think it was like insects hitting his car. But it was good. I mean, I fucking like this movie. I highly suggest.
Hey, and that goes with the God feeling too. The plagues.
There you go. Exactly. All right, that was Danny. What's the final word?
Oxal laser beams.
The horror deconstruction.